Ross Evelsizer is a watershed planner with the Northeast Iowa Resource Conservation and Development in Postville, Iowa. He graduated from South Dakota State University and has a BS degree in Communications, Geography, and GIS. Northeast Iowa RC&D is a nonprofit that serves a 7-county area in Northeast Iowa. Their mission is to recognize opportunities and provide leadership to make Northeast Iowa a vibrant, place-based model for the nation. So Ross, I'll turn it over to you.
That's good. Thank you, Eric. Yep. Well, as Eric mentioned, I'm a geography major, and geography is a study of spatial relationships and how things relate on the landscape. And right now I understand that my position in the landscape is between you and lunch, so we'll try and make this painless. As Eric mentioned, I'm here sort of representing the Turkey River Watershed Management Authority as well as Northeast Iowa RC&D. And we're at the Driftless Symposium, talking about the Driftless region, which is an area of land, but almost every presentation that we've heard has been about this, water. It's pretty important stuff. And seemingly everything we do kind of comes down to water and protecting it. Well, when it goes away, it's our ally when we get it back. We spend a lot of money and a lot of time figuring out how to get water to places that don't have it. There's a separate court system in the West that has been set up strictly to handle water rights and water issues. Oh, damn. Now what? Now we have too much water. So now what do we do? And that's really kind of where we're at here in the Midwest. In our specific area, in the Driftless region, we tend to have more water than we can handle at times. And so we have to look at what are we doing to handle these issues? Well, that affects our public infrastructure, that affects everything when we have too much water. So why are these things happening? Are we just getting more rain? Well, this is a 50-year study done by the Iowa Flood Center, and all those little circles are rain gauges throughout the Midwest. And the ones that aren't filled in are rain gauges that really haven't changed in annual precipitation in 50 years. Pretty much the same amount of rain from January 1st to December 31st. The little blue triangles, those are areas that it's gone up. But you can see, compared to the total number of rain gauges in the blue triangle, there's not very many that are showing that we're getting more rain. So on average, pretty much getting the same amount of rain, right? Well, maybe we should look at how that rain is coming. And as was just mentioned, previous presentation, maybe it's a quantity of when we're getting the rain, how we're getting the rain. So this is the same, a little bit different state spread. The blue triangles now, you can see there's a lot more of them, are showing increases in peak rainfalls, meaning we're getting the same amount of rain, we're getting less events, and when the events happen, they're bigger. So there's the Turkey River watershed. It is in the driftless portion of Iowa. You can see that it's a very large watershed, as opposed to what Eric and Dean and Brian are working in, a very rural watershed. What's the population of Dubuque? You guys know offhand. 60,000. The largest town in the Turkey River watershed is West Union at just under 2,500 people. It's a very rural watershed, so it's a little bit different issues that we're dealing with there. You may have recognized this slide from the very first presentation on yesterday. This is the city of Elkader in 2008. Well, they had in 2008, much of Iowa, especially eastern Iowa, and the whole driftless area really went through a horrible experience, and they had, what was considered a 500-year flood. Well, a lot of people say, well, good, we had that 500-year flood, now we're done. We don't have to worry about that for another 500 years. So that's a big misconception, because guess what? It flooded again in 2013, flooded again in 2010, flooded again in 2014. So what's going on here? This isn't just we can't just say, well, we'll build, down to the 500-year flood line or the 100-year flood line, and we should be all set, because water doesn't care. and it could happen again next year, and seemingly it's becoming a more likely scenario. Besides flooding, there have been a lot of presentations on water quality. We do water quality testing. You can see here in the turkey, anything that's orange or yellow, and if you can kind of make that out, or red even, are areas that are showing higher nitrates than really on the higher side, even pushing that not consumable by human threshold. This is also this was done by somebody in our office based on a real-time nitrate monitor and Garber. This is a 1-month time frame, and the numbers don't necessarily matter so much. And that the Turkey River is right there. And this is measuring the amount of nitrogen that went down in a month. So I think the date's April 1st to June 2nd, so 2 months actually. So we weren't the highest, right? That's good. But we made the podium. And what that equates to in poundage, the number of pounds per acre and the number of pounds per cropland acre ended up being over $7 million in nitrogen that washed down the river in 2 months. And that was just in 2013. So every time this happens, and this is kind of the wet period, this is when planting's going on, so the fields are vulnerable. So the ag fields are vulnerable. They're just getting that crop planted. There's no cover there, so that's when the highest rains come. And next thing you know, we're losing all that nitrogen downstream. So now what? Well, the first thing we do is look at, maybe we'll look at what we've done in the past. How do we handle these issues in the past? Well, typically we're reacting. We have an event. We say, well, this is the highest event we've ever had, so let's build our flood walls up to here. That's what Elkader did. They said, well, it can't flood above here because it's never happened before. But then it did. So now they're flooded again. So what do they build their walls up to that 500-year storm and say, well, maybe this is how high we need to go? Well, then it'll just fail again, right? Like I said, we're building structures to protect us. We've done this for years. We can fix it. We have the technology. We're humans. We can conquer anything. But I don't know that I'd want to be in that house. We build larger and larger infrastructure. The policy right now, when FEMA comes in to replace a structure, a bridge or a culvert or a roadway, is to put something of equal size or larger. But what's that going to do? That's just putting the same exact thing down that was there before so that the exact same thing can happen. And that's if the conditions stay the same. But I've already shown you, Brian's already shown you, that the conditions are getting worse. So I'm not sure that's really a good idea. So does it work? No. We've shown that. Does everybody know the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results? So what we did, when I say we, Northeast Iowa RC&D is helping with it, but the board chair for the Turkey River Watershed Management Authority is here today, Rod Marlette, and it was really led by the people within the watershed. A few individuals started it, and what we've done is it was changed through Iowa law that the watershed management authorities could be formed. And you heard a little bit about that yesterday with Eric and Dean's talk. But basically what it is that every entity within a watershed that is a community, a county, or a soil and water district must be invited by another entity, and then they can join together to form this authority that has absolutely no authority. And they come together for this explicit purpose they can work on flood reduction and they can work on water quality improvement. And so that's what we did. So what's an authority with no authority, right? So this is the participating members of the Turkey River Watershed Management Authority. When all was said and done, this was actually before I came. I got to miss out on the fun part. But Rod and a bunch of staff from our office and other members that ended up on the Watershed Management Authority Board ran around to city council meetings and commissioner meetings and rallied all these people, and we ended up with 35 members, which is just about everyone that was possible. 23 of those are communities, 7 soil and water districts, and 5 counties. And so we have quite a variety of folks. They each send one representative to each of our our quarterly board meetings. And so we have, even within, though they're representing an entity, they also have, you know, a home job, and so they're volunteering their time, and that just shows how much people within the watershed care and are willing to move forward with this. So at the meetings, the first thing we did was, the first few meetings we had public meetings, and then we had the Watershed Management Authority meetings. And we really felt the need to bring people up to the same dialogue. We had we had a lot of experts come in. Eric came up and talked one day just to talk about what, you know, some urban conservation techniques that cities could be doing, because we really wanted to elevate that level of understanding and bring everybody to the same page about kind of how to move forward, rather than saying, you know, where do you live in the watershed? And they say, no, I put my tractor in the shed. I don't live in a watershed. So, and that was really the first kind of year almost of just trying to get everybody on the same page. The other thing we did was we did a survey of the people in the watershed. We sent it out to 1,000 rural residents and 500 urban residents, and we got a really good feedback. We got over 400 of those back. And what we found out a lot of good information, but the bottom line, the last question that we asked is, are you willing to do something on your property to reduce flooding or improve water quality? And 2 out of 3 people in both settings said yes. So that's 60% of the people in the watershed. That's pretty good. Now the other component, besides just having a good, strong authority board and educating those folks and people within the watershed, we have good backup. The Iowa Flood Center has been a key partner. We have a number of partners, but really the Iowa Flood Center has been an excellent partner. This is an example of some of the work that they've done. This has actually been completed. They're doing hydrologic modeling in the watershed, and the overall Turkey model that they have done has been completed and is on our website. And what that showed is that flooding can be reduced, and here's how you can do it with the ability of using certain flood control structures in some different ways. And so they've been a really critical partner. And I'll get into some of the monitoring that we're doing. We are monitoring the hell out of this watershed. I don't know that there's a Huck 8 watershed that has more monitoring than the Turkey River. And it's really cool because we can see things that you couldn't see before, and we'll be able to watch as work moves forward to see if it is working and how much. So there's 21 stream and river gauges put in. Some of those are USGS, and some of them are put in by the Flood Center themselves. This spring we'll be putting out a network of 20 rain gauges, soil moisture probes, and soil temperature probes, and those are actually out in the watershed in 2013. They were put out by NASA as an attempt to do some ground truthing with their weather satellites. Well, they went out, and as Rod could collaborate, we had, when they took them back 2 months later, the farmers didn't want to let go of them. So the Flood Center said, hey, we'll do what we can, and so we actually partnered with them to apply for some private funding, and we got the funding back. They're building them this winter. They're going to go out in the spring, and all those farmers that had them before want them back. And so that information is actually online in its real time, so people can see how much it rained. Rod has one by his place, and then the vice chair has one a couple miles away at his place, and then so they can no longer lie about how much rain they got at their place, just because you can actually see it in real time. But it's been a very valuable tool for also to engage producers, because now they can see live. The soil moisture probes are going to stay out all year, so they can see live as the ground's thawing. They can say, well, the soil's not to a good temperature for planting yet, because they can see it live. They can see how it's different throughout the watershed. They can see communities are going to start, we're trying to spread the word so that the communities are using this. They can say, well, they just got pounded in Howard County at the top of the watershed, and we're 2 counties down, so we can expect that rain in a couple days. The other thing we have is 5 real-time nitrate sensors. This data is not available online yet, but it will be. You can actually get the data if you contact the Flood Center, but it's not available live yet. At those a few locations, we have shallow groundwater well to see how the water is moving all the way down to deep in the system. Additionally, we have this spring we're going to be starting another project that is monitoring tile outlets with 6 producers at 12 different locations. We're partnering with the Iowa Soybean Association to do that. That's really a neat project because then those farmers can see what is actually coming out of their tile and what they can maybe do to improve that, or if they're already doing a great job, and then maybe they can pass the word on to their neighbors. The Soybean Association has done this in the past, and they had a gentleman who has actually become quite well known. I think his name is Tim Smith, and he was just running his farm, and he thought he was doing a really good job. And so the Soybean Association said, "Yeah, do you want to do some tile outlet monitoring?" He's like, "Sure. I do a really good job on my farm with keeping the nitrates and things there, and so I have no problem doing it." And the results that he got blew his mind. And he is one of the most outspoken, conservation-minded farmers in Iowa now because of the results of that tile outlet monitoring. So we're hoping to see some of those same results in the turkey. We just completed, we're starting our 4th year of water quality monitoring at 52 sites. That's done partially by RC&D. Our staff goes out, and then the soil and water districts and the trout hatchery actually go out to different sites to grab samples and send them in. We've hit a little bit of a bump with funding on that this year, but we're going to hope to keep pushing through this year, and then hopefully that funding will be returned next year. So I mentioned you can access a lot of this information from the Flood Center. As far as the river gauges, you can see those are the green squares, and then the rain gauges. There's actually 5 out right now in the sub-watershed of Otter Creek right now, and this is where you can access it. It's the Iowa Flood Center Information System. I can get that link to somebody if you need it. So our planning strategy, I mentioned, we have all these partners. And we want to do some things differently. We don't want to do the same things that we've always done. And at RC&D, we have a good grasp of conservation, but we've never done a flood reduction plan before. So, and we thought, well, what good is it going to do if we just, write this plan and hand it to them? There's not going to be any buy-in. So, what we've done is we've broken it down by committees. A number of them listed here. There's probably more that I didn't list. So you have all these different committees. And what it is you have a community committee and fisheries committee, and they're making goals just for themselves. So all the communities in the watershed say, well, I don't know anything, I can't do anything with the ag ground, but we can put impermeable pavers, and we can do some of these rain barrel program, and we can do a bioswale. And each community then signed up for different practices that they could do. And so then their section, that goes into their section of the plan. And then, each committee did that, and so they have a tangible goal. So, through the implementation period, they can be working towards that tangible goal. So I want to give you an example of one of these committees and kind of how they thought about things differently than what they've been doing. And it's really exciting, and it's certainly relevant for other areas of the Driftless as far as flood reduction and water quality improvement. So the County Infrastructure Committee, I hate this one because it's so long and I always have to write it. It started out with the county engineers. We just invited the county engineers to a meeting at our office. My wife made pie, and we talked about just kind of, what the issues that they faced. That's really what it started with. I mentioned that we've had terrible flooding in the last few years. Well, we just kind of wanted to get a grasp of what have they been through, like how much infrastructure have they lost, and maybe some ideas for how to fix that in the future. Well, one of the engineers that was there was the Winneshiek County engineer, and they had actually done a project with the Winneshiek Soil and Water District in the northern part of the county in the North Bear watershed. And what they did there is they did something really neat. And you've probably heard of sediment retention basins and ponds. Well, they did that except instead of just on private land, they actually took the pond and put it on the road. So they used the road as the dam, and the water backs up above it. Well, the reason that they did that is because they had the same road, basically, in that watershed was washing out over and over and over again. They kept replacing it. They'd make a new spot. Same thing would happen. They could not fix it. So they went above it, and they put a couple of these structures with a couple others on private land. And now he's so happy with it because he hasn't had to replace that road since. So he thought it was a great idea. So he started talking to the other engineers about it, and it kind of went from there. We got each of the county engineers control hundreds of miles of road and thousands of bridges and culverts. So they have a lot of infrastructure to worry about. And once they started this conversation, they said, well, we can't do anything unless the supervisors are involved. So that's why it's the county infrastructure committee and not just the engineer committee. It's because now we have the supervisors involved who kind of control the budget and how these things get replaced. So what they've all done now is we work together, we develop new policy to consider putting these structures in all over the watershed, all over their counties, whenever a small bridge or a culvert goes out. And all the counties have now passed it. And that's really a big step because now it's on paper, now it's in the books, and that means that when FEMA comes in and says, okay, this culvert washes out, we'll replace it with a similar sized structure, the county engineer can say, no, we have this policy that says we're going to put in a different kind of structure, and so FEMA will actually pay to put that structure in. So you're probably wondering what these look like. Well, this is one right here. Can you tell there's anything there? Not really. So throughout the driftless, we have all these gullies. You're going to have to use your imagination a little bit here. But throughout the driftless, we have all these gullies, right? At the top of the watersheds especially. You get up high. Anywhere you drop water, it goes somewhere, and it drops into one of these drainages. And a lot of them are dry. They don't have any water in them most of the time unless it's raining. So the idea with these is not to build big dams and things that will fail like we've done in the past, but to keep them really small. All this is, before, you can imagine you're driving down this road, you would come to this, you come up over the hill, it's all roller coaster, you come up over the hill, and then you drop down in the next gully, and then you come up, and then a lot of times you're going down to a narrow bridge that has a weight limit, and you barrel across that bridge, and then you bounce up, and you come back up on the other side. Well, this is the same spot. All they did was widen the road, level it off, and they put in an overflow valve, and then they put a smaller valve on the bottom. And they worked with the upstream landowner. He was on board, and he doesn't want a lake on his property. So that's why it drains out. It's just designed so that it's got a smaller pipe so that when it rains hard, water hits this dam and backs up, but then it's got that drain. So it's not going to hold water permanently. It just slowly drains out over a couple days instead of rushing downstream to wash out the next bridge. And so really this is the downstream view. Anybody want to guess why I'm not a brain surgeon? This is the outlet way down here. And so you can see it's wider. The road's actually wider and safer now than it was before because you have a better field of view and the plows like it better and everything. But it's also providing, it's protecting that small drainage that's coming down to it, and it's protecting the next structure downstream because it's keeping that water from that small area, from going down and wreaking havoc. So this is another kind of view of one, and what they did with the upstream landowner is that they wrote in the Bear Creek one, and it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward. They have a floodplain easement. It's different than a permanent conservation easement, where basically when it's designed, they say based on a certain amount of rain, this is the area that could be inundated with water for a period of X days, and then they work it out with the landowner that way. So he can do whatever he wants above this structure and take the risk of putting corn in there if he wants. But you can see that's all it is. And this is after an extremely wet period. There's no water in there. It's drained out. But, you can see that the vegetation isn't pounded down below that. This gentleman, this is another example of one. This was a dry, You can see the valley going on up there, up the valley. There was no permanent water here, but this is pasture, and he needed a water source for his cattle, so he wanted the water to stay there, so he got what he wanted. Now he has a water source for his cattle. This is the downstream. Now this is after a really, really wet period in 2013, and you can't see it very well probably, but this is one of the only creek bottoms in the whole area that wasn't completely flattened or churning with muddy water if you drove around that day. So they were working. Some important things that the engineers felt, the county supervisors felt, and then others that gave us input on what to include in this policy. First of all, they're voluntary. When the county is considering putting one of these in, they're not saying, oh yeah, we're doing it, when we're going to do it right here and you're going to deal with it. It's voluntary, and it's only if the landowner wants it. That is first and foremost. And then the other thing is we have a lot of cold water streams. You folks know that. We're in the drift list. We want to protect those, so we don't want to be stopping spring water, warming it up, and then sending it on down. So we want places where there's not permanently flowing water, so we're not causing issues with the ecosystem. We want small drainages. We've seen that larger structures fail, and if the larger structure fails, then everybody knows about it downstream. If we keep them very, very small, where the drainage are less than 500 acres, if one washes out, you really won't even know the difference. The other thing is they wanted to keep them on gravel roads, and that's their thing. It's just the ease of putting them in and out. It's a lot easier to do on a gravel road than a paved road. And they wanted to prioritize damaged or failing structures for replacement. The other thing that they wanted to look at was just, if they put one of these in, what's downstream of it? They have a structure that is just barely meeting guidelines, that is really vulnerable to floods, and they can put one of these in up above it, then that's going to be a priority area as well. So like I said, they're really small. So what's protecting 500 acres of runoff going to do? Well, if you look at it from a watershed scale, I did this quick analysis, and this was actually with different specifications. It was actually even a tighter specifications of 50 to 300 acre drainages. So anything that didn't fall within that actually wasn't included in this map. But you can see if we did that at every location where you could do it, there'd be that many. I think it was 275 structures in the watershed. Well, that's a pretty big number, and you put that many on the ground, and next thing you know, you're making a big difference in how much water is actually coming down and how fast. So that's just one example. I could have picked any one of the committees that we've been working with and given you a really unique example of what they've actually come up with. Some of them are tried and true techniques that they're going to just apply differently, and some of them are actually new ideas like this policy. I don't know anywhere else in Iowa that's actually doing it. Maybe some of you folks know of an example, but I don't. So, like I said, the communities have come up with their ideas. Like they came up with all the different ideas that they wanted to do, and then each community said, well, maybe we would do these things and maybe we wouldn't, but we'd like to consider it. So when we've got done with the actual plan, well, we're not done yet, but we're writing it, but we're done with the objectives. And each of these things that the committees are considering need to address these objectives. And the first thing is, and we just heard a great talk this morning in the other room from Mr. Hillers about soil health. And that's really a component that a lot of us want to address, and that's to implement practices that when the water hits the ground, it goes where it's supposed to, and that's into the ground. That's where it's the most use for us. Agricultural state, it needs to be in the ground, so that when those dry periods come along, it's where it's supposed to be. And that's the most efficient way to prevent flooding and improve water quality, right? If the water's in the ground and not flowing overland, picking up everything in its path. So in the event that we get those larger events, you're going to have excess water. So that's where these other sort of practices come in that we want to take and slow that water down. So if we get excess water that's running overland, then let's put in things, buffers and these sediment retention basins and on-road flood management structures to slow that water down so that it's not causing havoc as we move down through the watershed. And then we want to protect and restore the in-stream habitat. And that's really going to be the final step. But you start at the top and work your way down. then we can do things like bank stabilization, restoring that floodplain, taking off the incised banks that have created almost like a dike, and that's really objective 3. We have a lot of highly sensitive areas. We want to protect those, and we want to do a lot of education. Like I said, we've tried to do that from the very beginning. We have a lot of partners that are willing to do that. It takes a lot of time, but that's really a really important part of this plan from start to finish. And then we want to document how much we're making a difference. And that's where all that monitoring and the gauges and things like that, that's where that's going to come in. We know where we started because we got this stuff in before we've gotten anything really on the ground. But we want to track that as we go. And we've really tried to put this together. I think Eric mentioned it yesterday as part of their plan, but this isn't a document that we're just writing. We're going to give it to the authority, and they can say, well, that's good, that's done. Now we can put it on the shelf and forget it. It's got to be something that works, and that's why we had the people in the watershed give their input, and now each of them has a goal that they want to achieve. And we've already started, really. We haven't finished the plan yet, but we have 2 watershed projects in Clayton and Wenatchee County that are already working through the Iowa Nutrient Reduction Strategy to get water quality improvement practices down. We have in Fayette County, we have an Otter Creek project with Iowa Economic Development Authority and Iowa Flood Center, where it's a $1.5 million project. The Flood Center is modeling that they're going to model before, and then they're going to be constructing flood management structures here in the next year and a half, and then they're going to model it again and show just how much discharge they've reduced in that watershed. So that's already going on, and the plan's not even finished. So we really see this as a sort of a moving plan. We'll have something on paper, but as needs change, as times change, as data changes, we can see what's working and what's not, and hopefully we can put more stuff on the ground. So I want to thank Rod before we have questions. Rod has been invaluable. He comes to every meeting, is on every committee. So we're moving into starting a watershed management authority in the Upper Wapsie, and then the Upper Iowa River actually wants to start a management authority hopefully this year. So Laura and I have been asking each other, who can we get as a Rod in each of those watersheds? So that'll take any questions you might have.
Could you expound on or explain some of the for your monitoring specifically, some of how much it might have cost and what dollars you might have tapped into?
Do you have a specific one, or like the water quality, or?
Well, the nitrates I found really interesting, and then the rain
Yeah.
gauges and some of your USGS stations.
So the USGS ones were there anyway. They're just on they have them on most of the major streams and rivers. The Flood Center since the Flood Center has started, they've tried to get a network out there throughout the state. So they've put their money into that. With the water quality monitoring, we actually got money from the Iowa DNR. They paid for the analysis, and then we got a small grant to pay for us to get the supplies and to go out and actually do it. That's what got cut. The DNR said that's done this year. So we're kind of scrambling. I think we have enough money for this year. We hope. And then hopefully we can convince them to put that back next year, because we don't want a gap. At this point, we have 4 years of good base data. We don't want a gap in that, because that's the value. And as far as the rain gauges go, we actually got some funding from McKnight Foundation for that. They gave us a significant proportion, and what we couldn't, that didn't cover the whole thing, so then the Flood Center actually put in the rest. And they're building it and then paying for their time to maintain it and get it on that website, the Iowa Flood Information System.
With the original plan was for NASA, most of these farmers thought people are going to show up with astronauts.
Yeah, there's going to be astronauts everywhere in the Turkey River watershed.
You have one across the watershed and it literally almost fist fights. Which farmer are going to get those?
Yeah, we got.
Mushroom hunters love them.
Yeah, the mushroom hunters love them because they show soil temperature. Yep. Yeah, it's a very good I didn't mention about the producer groups. We have people are so excited about the rain gauges and the different gauging system that we had all the producer groups invited to a meeting at our office. We had Farm Bureau, we had corn growers, we had pork producers, we had Soybean Association, all in the same room. I know that's amazing. And they were talking about conservation. And the regional person from Farm Bureau there was so excited about it that they're actually applying for a grant through their office to get 3 more rain gauges put down that they can have on their producers' property. So it's a really great way, not only it's a great tool for the producers, but it's also a great way to get them talking about what we're doing and to get them involved, because like I said, 2 out of 3 people in the watershed said they would do something, but they'll only do something if they know about it. So if they don't know about it, then how can we help them? And there's only so many people that are going out and talking to these people. So that's really the goal, is to just get more and more people to know about the Turkey River Watershed Management Authority. So, yes?
When I was at the Iowa Water Conference last year, I talked to a vendor whose company was selling nutrient monitoring devices that could monitor in real time. They were, run off of solar batteries, and a telephone would send the stuff in. And is that something that you all have looked into or could afford or would be useful?
As far as can afford, no. No, the flood center, that's kind of what they have. I don't know if they bought them or if they made them. I know that the system that they have to put them in the creek is certainly homemade, because it's just they drilled the iron stake down in the ground, and then they have them attached to a PVC pipe, and then they have
But the flood center is measuring quantity, aren't they?
They're measuring quantity,
and
but
rate
now,
of flow?
so that's the flood center, but also with that is the IIHR, which is also at the University of Iowa. It's in the same building, and they have those gauges. They have 5 nitrate sensors, and then they have at a couple of locations they measure pH and turbidity and temperature as well. But that's exactly what you're saying. There's a solar panel there, and it's live, and they're trying to figure out where they're going to house that at online, so people can see it in real time. I think the Dubuque is also working with their office as well to get a couple of those in to the Catfish Creek watershed as well. Yep.
2 things. It looks like you're doing a very good job communicating with the people in your district, and you need to do that. We were doing something similar in years gone by here, but our hills are a lot higher than you got down there. But we got federal funding for a lot of dams in our area, Vernon and La Crosse and other counties here in the hills. And the feds put the dams in, and we wrote a contract saying 50 years from now, it's your dam at the county level. So now the counties are picking up the cost of everything, and we had some major rainfalls and flooding over in Vernon County, and they're washing out, and the county has got to pick up the cost now. So as long as you don't have major rainfalls. But the second point is I was on land conservation here in the county for 22 years. 18 years ago, we bought a monitoring station on one creek watershed, and it's automatic. It's got a battery solar system in it. We built a little shack right along the creek that looks like a bathroom of old times.
Yeah.
Some of you remember those. But anyhow, it automatically, every rainfall, it automatically takes samples and everything. So if I remember, it probably was around 20 grand we spent for the whole setup, but it's not cheap. But
I think just the nitrate sensors, like it was asked about, I think they go for 35, and that's just for the gauge. So they had one washed downstream last year, so they were a little bit disappointed about that. So, but that's just for the nitrates. That doesn't measure anything else. Like I said, there's other ones there. I don't think the cost is as high, but you get all those units there directly. And the funny thing is, they're just sitting right there in the stream. They haven't had any problems with people messing with them or anything like that. So that's good. But yeah, certainly certainly a valuable tool. So. Any other questions? Answer?
I'll say just my comment. The flood center modeling has been done on Otter Ridge, which is a sub-watershed to Turkey, was chosen because of how it plays. Their modeling shows that we put in 14 of those structures across that Otter Creek watershed, which the city of Elgin is the counterparts of that watershed into the Turkey River. And that's a combination of on-roads or whatever, 14 average structures. The modeling shows that that will take the peak flow off the 08 flood levels.
37%.
37%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I live in Elgin, and Elgin was flooding when nobody else knew what flooding was. And if you took 37, that doesn't sound like a lot. Can't stop flooding. If you take that down 37% instead of sandbagging, we're all back to the fire station drinking beer. Seriously.
Yep.
So the idea, the modeling was done to say this. So the money we got was actually to put that many structures or more on that watershed, so then the flood center from the next event or whatever, that test that model and see if indeed that does accomplish that goal. And then hopefully take that statewide.
Yep.
See these things work. So that's why the money's in place. There's
Yeah,
a lot of engineers are going to get going for that. They're really, really excited.
Yeah, the flood center is really, and they're using that. They're putting all this money into the Turkey not because they just like us a lot, but because it's really trying to serve as a statewide example. They want to show, and we want to show, and everybody on our board wants to show, because we have a number of producers on our board, that we can do this and we can do it voluntarily. Everything that we mentioned, everything that everybody wants to do is voluntary, and we want to show that it can be done. And so, you know, I don't know where things are going. There's a lawsuit going on in Des Moines and everything else, but we're trying to show that it can be done voluntarily. But people that say we've already done everything that can be done and it can't be done voluntarily, well, maybe there's a few things left in the trick bag that we could try yet. So we're hoping to get that done. So, how am I doing on time? Is that
I think you're good.
okay?
Eric and Dean have the lead, so I'm going to thank our speaker.